Yeah, congratulations on the movie. Very intense. Loved it. I'm not going to forget it in a hurry. Jonas, starting with you, there's obviously a documentary. There's a lot of material out there online. I just wondered what the draw of kind of a scripted narrative feature was for you, and what you can explore with that can't be done in a documentary.
And I think it started with just being there when it all happened, hearing about it, believing for years that I was closer to this story than anybody else. And then I realized that a lot of other people thought the same, that, this is my story, I know it better. And then these documentaries started to pop up and gave different perspectives. Reading Lords of Chaos just when it came out, was like a big deal. It was like an interesting book, and it stayed with me for a long time. So I thought about this movie years and years ago, and it needed to kind of brew within me for a while before I had the courage to sit down and write it. Not really knowing what the main focus would be, it took me a while before I, number one, thought that none of the documents that we've seen, and if you Google their names today, there's always like a demon or a fire or a corpse makeup and a monster, and thinking that these were young boys, young children basically. And I wanted to capture that in my view of this story. So that slowly became like the main thing for me to capture.
And I know you were in a band, but I just wondered how musical you guys were, and how into sort of metal music you might have been growing up or now.
Neither one of us are musicians.
Not musicians. No, we spent about a week playing some music together. I think that was a good way in, was realizing how hard it was to play that fast. And I mean, we were pretending to play that fast, so how hard it was to pretend to play that fast, But no, I had seen the documentaries and stuff before I read the script, just looking online, but I didn't get as much into the music as when we were working on the songs and having to listen to it and figure it out.
Same.
Yeah.
It's when you first listen to it, it's sort of repellent, and I think maybe that's sort of the nature of it. It's sort of like a fortress of music. You know what I mean? You gotta hang in there before you start to actually hear the music. At least for me. So. Yeah, once I actually did start to understand the lyrics and everything, I started to see the beauty in it. I don't know if that's the proper word, but
And definitely inspires feelings anyway, whether you like it or not. I used to like my mum not enjoying it and me saying oh, it's brilliant, or whatever, whatever it was.
Some people find it therapeutic for some reason, I mean.
And how about those live sequences? They looked brilliant. The gig footage, what was that like to shoot? What did you want to do with those scenes?
I mean, once these guys actually learned how to pretend to make it look good, it was kind of easy for me to shoot it. It's 30 years of music videos helped, so I kind of knew the coverage I needed to do to get it right in the edit. And I didn't want it. I mean, we had some great references because I had pictures of the rehearsal studio. I knew exactly what guitar they were playing and the stickers on the guitar, and what shoes and t-shirts and amps and drums and everything they had. So I used a lot of those reference pictures to get it right. I didn't want to give the pleasure to the black metal professors to give me shit to make it wrong. So I really wanted it to be right. And and they actually did a great job to make it look. I mean, I've shot music videos all my life, and a lot of professionals I work with doesn't know their music, so I'm used to getting it right in the edit. But with these guys, they actually got it pretty good.
You actually shot a Metallica video in the mix as well. Was that part of the 18 days?
Yeah, that was tagging on a couple of hours on one of our shoot days when we were there, and it came about because Lars called me and asked me if I wanted to do. He had an idea to make a video for each song of the new album, and he basically sent me a bunch of songs and said, pick one, pick two, pick three, do whatever you want. The idea was that anybody could do anything they wanted, and I said, no, there's no way, I'm shooting a movie there, I can't do it. And then the same day, we were actually rehearsing, and I'm standing there thinking, I got these guys, I got instruments, and they're like practicing, so I asked them if they wanted to learn one more song. And then we just tagged it on to one of the shoot days, and it was actually a great idea, and it confused Mayhem fans, it confused Metallica fans, and everything was great except the timing was a little bit off. It came out way too early. You know, obviously the movie's coming out now, a year later, so the timing was a little off, but it became like a nice teaser for what Lords of Chaos is now becoming.
And I just wondered what helped you channel your characters, whether it was like looking at a lot of the archive material that's there, or did you kind of stick with the script, or kind of a combination of the two?
First of all, I like how casual he was about Lars called me. Lars has called me, whatever. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, I mean, we had hundreds of photographs to work from, and yeah, I mean, you know, it's in the writing, it's in the script, but then we had he made a picture script as well that was 600 pages long. So every scene was sort of accompanied by a photograph of Euronymous and of the guys. And that was really helpful to see Euronymous in character in some photos, and to see him sort of in the background being silly, and you know, it's sort of can build a human from that.
Man, I got a strut from Varg. I saw Varg walking, and there was like a strut there. And then it's interesting what you say about the pictures and seeing Euronymous in character or not. I think one thing when I see Varg, especially over the years, it feels like he's less in character, that he's kind of more can't figure out who the two are, you know. And I thought, now thinking about that is an interesting dynamic. Like, you're a guy knowing when he's on and off, and Varg just not being able to figure that out, like an actor who goes too far, you know.
And one of the things I found really interesting about the movie was there's a degree of kind of almost like admiration for, you know, the passion that these guys had, without kind of condoning, you know, the criminal acts that happened. Could you talk a bit about that approach, probably for all of you, if you kind of agree with that?
Mm-hmm. What's the question? Sorry.
Well, you don't seem to be like judging these characters like as you play them, and also like making the film. It's like, you know, there's striking that balance of not really condoning what they're doing, but at the same time, there's some kind of admiration for, I guess, their passion.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds a little confusing, but I don't know. It's hard to make a movie about idiots, and it's hard to kind of stay true to that, but at the same time build some sort of sympathy for. And I think that was the balance that we had to figure out. They did these awful things, but they were still young, and we wanted them to be likable, and we wanted to feel for them. And so I think that was just like a balance thing that we worked on throughout the whole project, actually, to get it right. Why do they even deserve a movie? You know, it's like, why do we even talk about them after all the terrible things that happen? So we had to find those reasons within the characters to build on.
It is a strange balance, because like you were saying, like, obviously I admire their passion, but I don't admire the fact that he was encouraging people to have suicidal thoughts and things like that. It's a very strange. At what point do you stop respecting these guys? You know, because I mean, there definitely is something there. I think it is worth making a movie about. Obviously, you know that, because we did that. But yeah, it's a strange balance of admiration and disgust. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the same thing, you know. I think there were definitely times me and Rory would go out and just try to give ourselves a healthy dose of reminding ourselves that we were just actors trying to do our job and stuff. I think that the one thing about it that was an interesting thing to look at was, who were these people before they did all these acts? Who were they before? That's almost more interesting, really, than who they became and the stuff they did. You know, was how they became that, who they were, where they went and stuff. But we definitely, especially when we got to Norway, because we shot a lot in Budapest. And I think we talked about it, but being in Norway where it happened, it changed the atmosphere, I think, for us a little bit. It made things a little bit realer, a little bit scarier. I actually thought that it helped that we shot a lot of the character-driven dialogue stuff in Budapest, where we could remind ourselves, where we were a bit more separated from the story and stuff, you know?
One of the elements I really loved was the editing, very especially the fast cut stuff, which seemed to kind of represent their psychological states as well. Could you talk a little bit about your choices for the editing in the movie, particularly those fast cuts?
I mean, I was trying, as always. I started as an editor, and I always actually consider myself an editor. Like directing and writing and preparing, it's all preparing for the edit. I always try to use techniques just to make whatever it is I try to communicate stronger. And I felt like there was a few moments where I could really use a lot of sound effects. But this movie has like a lot of layers to it. It's like these crazy flashbacks and crazy dream sequences, and then it's very long dialogue scenes that are kind of like very drawn out and it's almost slow. So I feel like this movie has like, it follows the story with all the ups and downs with help of the edit and sound.
And you mentioned the sound. What about the music? Because it's not just metal. There's also Sigur Rós on the soundtrack as well. Could you talk about that element?
The music basically had three parts. You know, it has the black metal, the music that they created and played, and then there's the songs that they listened to back then, which that playlist could have been much longer because there's a lot of music in their lives. And then I needed a little bit of an emotional push, and I gave Jonesy from Sigur Rós the script pretty early, and he connected to the script, and then he was really busy, so I was hoping that he would like the edits when I started to show him, and he did. So eventually we got we actually ended up with a mix of some of his existing music with stems that I re-edited, and some of the new stuff that he wrote together with his band Sigur Rós. So that was amazing, and that's exactly what the movie was missing in terms of the music. That's exactly what I needed.
And I loved how graphic and kind of unflinching the death scenes are in the movie. They're definitely like they don't feel like movie versions of what we're used to seeing. I just wondered why you wanted to shoot them like that, and what the scene that you have was like to shoot from your perspective as actors.
I mean, to me, they became part of everything else. My approach with everything in this movie was to make it as real and close to the reality as I could, and it was the same with the murder scenes. And everything required a lot of research in this movie, but with these murder scenes, there was very detailed police reports. So, and even pictures. I mean, even that horrible picture of Pelle's suicide, we can use as research. So they became as real as I think we could have done it. We shot it very like old school with rubber prosthetics and pumps with pumping blood, and it became very technical, and of course like hard work for these guys, especially the last scene of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there were times in this movie to try to attempt to look cool. That scene wasn't one of those times. That would have been a disservice to the boys. So yeah, I was just trying to be authentic and terrified.
I just try. Because of the nature of it, to simplify it for myself, I thought of the characters just being really hurt by his best friend, really angry, and because then once you get into the actual stabbing stuff, like we're saying, it's very technical, very old school, and so then you have what to focus on. I was talking to somebody and I said the way that we shot that scene, it was like if you were to just eat steak and pump barbells to get jacked. Like, it was old school, but you're gonna get jacked. And it was like this, it was old school, but it's gonna be there, Yeah.
It's gonna be full of meat.
Full of meat and blood and gore, oh my.
just finally, very very briefly, Jonas, going to just ask you about the wood that was used for the church burning. So I saw that Scott Free was on the credits, and I hear a rumor that it came from Ridley Scott. Is that right?
Yeah, the churches was actually a little bit of a patchwork too, because it was a mix of some of the real locations and some of fake locations where we built up churches that didn't exist next to the real church because they wouldn't allow us to go inside. And one of the churches we actually bought 2 years previous because it was on sale in Hungary from another shoot. So we took a risk and bought the church and put it in storage for a couple of years. And then when we built our miniature version of Holmenkollen, which is, you can't really fake fire because if you make it too small it becomes like Godzilla, if you know what I mean. So our miniatures was like still like 30 meters instead of 50 meters, so they were still pretty big. And so we built the facade, but we needed wood inside for it to burn for a little bit, and we couldn't afford wood, and Ridley was down there producing Blade Runner 2. So we actually got some of his old sets and put them in there. So we basically burned down the old Blade Runner sets. and same thing there, we did it old school. They suggested to bring in gas pipes and you know, do it like we do it today when you can go up and down and you can do several takes, but I wanted to do it old school. So it was basically wood, gasoline and a match, and then just like, and we estimated it's probably gonna burn for like half hour or so, but that fucker burned down in like minutes. It was so fast. Yeah. So we had to move our cameras really fast to get all the different angles and stuff.
Jonas, Rory, Emory, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!